I don't know what comes to mind when you hear the word lonely. What if I was to say to you that actually loneliness can be helpful? That might seem like a bit of a weird thing to say, but loneliness can be helpful in the same way as other feelings can be helpful to us. It points to something that we are missing. See, just as when you get hungry, you're reminded to eat something, that you need some food, some nutrition in your body, or when you get thirsty, you're reminded you need water in your body. When we get lonely, it's a reminder that we need connection, we need community, we need to know and be known by others. Our society is struggling with loneliness. In fact, some would say there is a loneliness epidemic in our society. Long before we had a pandemic, there was a loneliness epidemic. In fact, it got so bad in our country that we even have government ministers who are responsible for dealing with loneliness. We have a minister for loneliness in our country. This is like saying loneliness is as big a thing to deal with as the economy, or as education, or as health in general. It is such a big issue that it needs somebody who is focused on it to help us deal with it. In fact, loneliness can be a negative thing. We know that. Mother Teresa said that loneliness and the feeling of being unwanted is the most terrible poverty. When she started to work with people in Calcutta in India, she knew that she wasn't going to be able to fix all their physical problems. She knew that she wasn't going to be able to fix all their economic problems. But she also knew that she could make a huge difference to people's lives simply by seeing them and knowing them, by spending time with them, by listening to them, and by really hearing what they had to say. Mother Teresa knew that even if someone died of a disease or some kind of horrific injury, even if they were so poor they couldn't afford food and were struggling to stay healthy, that actually being seen and known by another, to not be lonely, could make such a massive difference in their lives, that actually the other struggle would pale into insignificance for the person. We often get that feeling of loneliness, that recognition that we need connection with others, and we try to fix it by increasing the number of our friends on social media or the number of follows that we have on social media. We think that the person with thousands of friends or thousands of followers cannot be lonely. But we were each made with this desire for connectedness. We were made to be in relationship. We were made to be seen and to be known and to know others. And the truth of it is that friends on social media, follows on social media, do not mean being seen and known. One of the things we know about social media is that for many of us, social media is simply the highlight reel of our lives. It's not truly being known. It's not sharing those vulnerable moments with people. It's not sharing the mundane with others. It's just simply sharing the highlights. It was God who made us for connection. He made us for connection with Him and connection with one another, a deep connection with each other. So how do we go about doing this? How do we go about dealing with loneliness? Well, the first place to deal with loneliness is to get to know ourselves. That might seem like a bit of a funny thing to say. Get to know yourself. To get to know yourself, you need to spend time with yourself, without the distractions of everything else. I'm not talking about spending 20 hours binge watching something on Netflix with just you in the room, but I'm talking about taking some quiet time. Taking some time to recognise your thoughts and your feelings and to see what it is that gives you those thoughts and feelings. Taking time where you've got no music playing, where you've got no TV on. Maybe you just go for a walk. Maybe you just sit and rest. Pay attention to your body, pay attention to your mind, pay attention to the state of your heart and your soul as well. But get to know yourself, start to recognise things about yourself. One of the things I found really helpful over the years, particularly when we've been doing our school leadership with some of the older youth, is some of the tools that we use to get to know one another can be really helpful for us to get to know ourselves as well. None of these tools are foolproof. None of them tell us everything we need to know. None of them put us or should put us into a box. But I've just found it really helpful to identify some things about myself, to get to know myself a little bit more. One of the tools we've used is a personality tool, and in it, every time I do it, I come out as an extrovert. And the level at which I'm an extrovert changes, but it's still quite high. And an extrovert is the kind of person who gets their energy from being around other people, but also likes to process their thoughts out loud by speaking. So when they say something, it's not a finished thought. They're trying to work out what they really think by speaking words out. On the other hand, you get introverts, and introverts are people who get their energy being on their own, and they like to think through their thoughts and get a fully formed thought in their head before they share it with other people. And I've realised that over the years, by knowing this and knowing that I am an extrovert, I'm the kind of person who likes to process my thoughts out loud. I've realised why I react in certain ways to things. I've realised why other people react to me, because it seems like I change my mind quite a lot. I don't, I've just been thinking through a thought that I had. When I'd shared it originally, it wasn't a fully formed thought. And that's why sometimes I react in the way I do. That's been a little bit of me getting to know myself better. Also looking at what some of my strengths are and some of my weaknesses, beginning to understand them a bit better has been really, really helpful for me. So take some time and get to know yourself. But also take some time and get to know God. You see, God knows us and He sees us. He knows everything there is to know about us. And He sees us all the time. He never leaves us nor forsakes us. And so if we want to move from feeling lonely to being connected, then it's good for us to get to know God. But that, just like getting to know ourselves, means taking time away. So just getting to know God. Spend time in His Word. Read the Bible. Spend time worshipping. Listen to what God has got to say to you as well. I don't know if you've ever felt lonely in a room full of people. I certainly have. Been in a room full of people and thinking, nobody here knows me. Nobody here even sees me. There's plenty of people around, but I feel lonely. Do you know, we need to invest in others as well. So we need to get to know ourselves, we need to get to know God, but also getting to know others and allowing others to get to know us is important. And most of us will find that that doesn't happen in a big crowd of people, but it happens when we invest in a few people. It involves being vulnerable and being honest with people. One great place to do that is in our small groups, in youth. It's to do it with friends. We know it's hard just now because the place that this happens best is when we're face to face with one another. So it's hard to do this online. But we still encourage you to have a go, to try. Maybe you've thought, oh, there's something I want to share in my small group, but it makes me vulnerable. Try it. Have a go. Share something that tells us something about who you really are. It doesn't have to be a great highlight from the week, but just share something more of who you are, because when we share more of who we are, we often see that people share back more of who they are. And as we get to know them, they get to know us. And it helps combat our loneliness. Also, it's good to be aware of others around us. Who around us might be feeling lonely at this time? Often we presume if somebody's loud and outgoing, if somebody is an extrovert, they're often around people, that they're not lonely. We presume somebody who's got lots of friends or followers on social media isn't lonely. We presume that the person that lives in a big family isn't lonely. Often these can be some of the loneliest people because they're surrounded by people who they feel don't know them. So take some time to ask God who you can get to know. Who around you is feeling lonely that you could spend some time with and get to know them. Loneliness can be helpful. It tells us, it reminds us that we need connection in our lives. We need connection with God, we need connection with others. But in order to do that, we need to get to know ourselves. We need to get to know God, and we need to get to know others and allow ourselves to be known by others.